I want to show you how I make the buildings on the bottom of this cake. Now I rolled my fondant out. It's about an eighth of an inch thick. It does have Tyler's powder mixed into it. I'm taking my ribbon cutter and I'm cutting ribbons in different widths. These are going to be the buildings. So I had to make sure that fondant was rolled out as tall as the cake, or if not, a little bit taller, so I can cut them down to size. And after I have them all cut, I put them on a cake box lid. You can also put them on a cookie sheet. I'm just taking rulers and straightening them out so they dry straight. And I'm just going to set those aside for about an hour or two so they can stiffen up. Now, I rolled this white fondant out really thin and it's been sitting out for about 20 minutes. It does have Tylo's powder mixed into it, but it dried really stiff. So, this is the process that I'm doing to get it in this strip cutter. Do you see how I'm using my tool to make the cuts and my hand to smooth everything out? And then I just smack it onto the cutting board to release it. And now I'm cutting these down to size. Now, these are going to be the windows. So, I'm just estimating how wide I want all of these to be. And I'm cutting 2 strips at a time. And then once I have all of those cut, I'm going to cut each one in half the other way. So I have really thin little strips here. This way of doing buildings is kind of a pain in the butt, but it's just a different look. And that's why I prefer to do it this way because it's a little unique. So I cut a little angled roof and then I'm pressing that into that white fondant just to get the impression before I cut this out. And I'm using an edible marker just to draw all these numbers on here. And then I'm drawing the hands of the clock as well. And then I'm going to cut it out. It's easier to write on it when it's not like a small circle, if that makes any sense. I put those on that black fondant and I realized they're a little too wide, so I was cutting them down to size and I'm gluing that clock down. And then this is the part that's a little bit of a pain in the butt because it's tiny, tiny pieces that I'm working with. So I'm starting with one in the middle. I'm going to put one on the right and one on the left. And I use my little end of my paintbrush and my fingers to try to make sure everything is lined up. And then I just try to cut a bunch of different shapes just to give it a little bit of variety. And again, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of putting these down wherever I think that they will look best. And I'm alternating between horizontal and vertical ones and just trying to give it as much variation as I can. And then I'm just going to set those aside and go grab my cake out of the refrigerator that is iced in American buttercream. And that icing is cold and hard, so I'm not going to mess it up. I got some icing in the middle and a little bit of piping gel around the edges. That way the icing won't seep out. And I'm starting in the very front with the clock. And then I'm just going to glue all of these to the cake as it goes around. I'm making sure the buildings are touching each other, so there's no space in between them. And I just wrap these all around the very bottom tier of the cake. And you can see I did different heights and different widths just to give it a lot of variation. And here you go. I do love making the buildings this way. The small pieces are pretty time consuming, but it's totally worth it. And you can also switch up the shapes of the buildings and the shapes and colors of the windows to give it a unique look.